James Whale with The Breakfast Show this morning until 9, and now we're going to have a look through the papers. David Appleford is joining me to do that. David, good morning to you.
Good morning, James.
Now, you're an engineer, chairman of AcerMetric Limited, and a man with many patents.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I'm an engineering designer.
And you have designed, well, I think I saw this on the television not long ago. You've designed this house you can build in a day.
Well, not quite a day, perhaps, but it depends on the size of it.
When you get round to it and you can do it well, you could probably put it up in a couple of hours. So it all slits together.
Yes, it actually clamps together. It's quite a unique feature is that each and every part of the system actually integrates with each other. So, for instance, the floor, the walls, the ceilings all clamp together with this three-dimensional connection system, which leaves a seam at every joint. We only use one of these locks to put the superstructure together, which is watertight when we put that together, and then the seams allow us to clamp on other things such as beams or
so presumably you do the groundworks, you put in all the drains and all the water and everything else. You put a concrete pad down, and then you come along and you put the house on top of it.
Absolutely, that's right. The foundations ultimately will be much simpler than we currently have. However, initially it takes time for education of these things. Our buildings are quite light compared to a conventional building, but like an aircraft is very light, but it's very, very strong. And our systems are exceptionally strong.
Because you can get wooden houses like this now, and they'll come along on the back of a lorry, and then the guys who produce them somewhere off in Norway or somewhere will come and build them.
Oh, you're talking about typical type of German type house, house type thing. Yes, now ours is quite different to that, in as much that we create composite structures or building blocks, if you like. But I say they're a flat panel. The typical size might be 8 foot by 4 foot or something like that in old money.
And so, will you be able to get a mortgage on these?
Oh yes, down the line, basically, we have to go through full certification. In fact, because we are new boys on the block, we actually have to go into far more depth than a conventional builder might have to go into in terms of this certification.
So I can't say, listen, I've got a space in the back of my garden, David, can you send one over?
Oh yes. We can certainly do that at the moment. We've built a demonstration 3-bedroom, 5-person house, but in fact the big leap for us, having finished all of our certification processes, was to actually get the chance to build a school, which is where we first met with you, and that school was quite a leap because each classroom is bigger than the footprint of a typical 3-bedroom, 5-person house, and of course all the loads are double the load of a typical house.
What about planning for that as well? Presumably you've got to get planning, and that's going to be another issue for a while.
Well, that's the same with any type of building. The planning permissions are required. It's quite important for us to actually start to talk to the planners in the various areas now that we're ready to commercialise the system. And planning is something that we actually do. We put the planning, go for the planning permissions, etc.
So compare with an ordinary house that you might want to buy now, say, I don't know, 190,000 or something, whatever. What would one of these cost?
Okay, typically we're talking around about the £120,000 mark for the selling price of a house. Of course, you've got to add into that the cost of the land.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not going to be a particularly cheaper option, it's just going to be a quicker way of building them.
I would say at the moment we're probably on a par, bearing in mind we've developed a mass production system similar to how cars will be built. We're not mass producing at the moment, we're more in what we call batch production. In Essex we have a factory in South Woodford where we're starting to produce these systems, but as we start to get into mass production the costs will come down, whereas the cost of traditional type building are going to start going up. So at the moment we're just slightly under, I would say, the cost of traditional, but that price will gradually lower and the price of traditional will go up, so that will be the value gap there.
And will they look different to the houses we have now? Will they be clad in brick, will they be clad in wood, or what will they look like?
Okay, one of the points about this invention was that we were trying to get a system that could give us any shape, any style, any size, any application, because we heard that Prince Charles, for instance, wanted traditional type build, modernists want modern. So we had to develop a system that could give you whatever style you like, and that's exactly what we've achieved with the system.
All right. You invent lots of things, or have done. What other things have you invented?
Well, I think the biggest part of my career has been inventing deep subsea systems that go in the deep oceans to produce oil and gas. That was a long period of my life, about 20 years, to develop just to get to a prototype stage, and that cost probably about £105 million to develop to the prototype stage. It's a very big industry. And of course, safety is paramount.
How do you become an inventor? You sort of, when you were a kid in the kitchen, sort of rifling through Mum's drawer and sticking things together. What do you do?
Well, I think that was probably one of the first inventions that I did for a lad across the way. It was his birthday, and I got one of these little pin things that you cut a circle, and I put a pin through it with a little cutout in the top so you could spin the wheel, etc., etc. The disappointing thing is I was quite proud of this little thing that I'd done for my friend, but I gave him the card, and he was more interested in this special clip. He said, I've been looking for one of these clips, and he took the thing apart.
Right, so David, let's look through the papers, which is what you've come in to do. First of all, let's talk about grammar schools. It was very much in the news yesterday. It's back in the papers today. Prince Charles has been trying to get more grammar schools. I think you probably saw that. Today, what are they saying about them?
Okay, well, basically, the Prime Minister says voters don't want to see children sorted into sheep and goats at 11. So does that mean they want donkeys at 16? It's really not complicated without academic selection. Britain's got talent, but too often it's doomed to bloom unseen.
And which paper is this in?
This is in the Daily Telegraph.
Yeah.
I like the Telegraph, being an engineer. Each particular paper has its own particular following. The Telegraph is very much for engineers, I think.
Okay. Do you agree with that? Do you think there should be more grammar schools? Or?
Yes, I do. I was lucky enough at the age of 11 to sit 11 plus, and I was able probably to scrape my way into a grammar school at the time. I wasn't in the top classes, but nevertheless, it was an opportunity for me to come from a working class background to get into an education that was trying to pull people up. It's always easy to pull things down.
Of course, you only can get into a grammar school now if your parents employ a tutor, really, apparently.
Well, I guess to a certain extent I was a bit lazy when I was younger, and my parents happened to know an old headmistress who my sisters
there we are. Now, you see, I'm a similar age to you.
Yes.
And
well, 69.
Yeah. Well, 16, I was going to say.
Okay.
I failed the 11 plus,
yes,
and went to a secondary modern school, yes, and hated school, but I don't think it's not about what you do at school, depending on whether you're academic or not. It's about what's in your head and what you want to do. And I often get worried now and see parents putting themselves through absolute agonies trying to live near a school they think they want their children to go to. Every school should be the same, shouldn't it, rather than worrying about... Every school should provide the same standard of education.
Yes, that is absolutely right, but it's very easy to level down. It's much more difficult to level up. As I was saying earlier, it's easy to destroy things. Anyone can destroy things. To create things is much more difficult. And you do need competition. I mean, life is about competition.
It is, you're right.
And I think the standards need to be raised all the time, and it's very difficult to raise standards.
But we must do something. I'm sounding like an old hippie here, which is very unusual for me, as Sonia will say. I think you can't forget those people who, for one reason or another, don't manage to take in the sort of the academic education and fall by the wayside. Because if we don't, then we're just giving ourselves a problem for later life.
Well, of course, one always has to get a balance right on these things.
What we tend to do is, if you're not very good at academia, you kind of get left behind.
Well, the other problem is, of course, with the grammar schools, I was much more of a creative type person. Perhaps I should have been better off in a technical school rather than a grammar school, because you quite rightly say grammar schools are much more involved in the academia side. However, the school I went to, which was Hornchurch Grammar School at the time, did have a good section in it which looked after the art side and also the engineering design side, and it was that side that I started to move towards.
All right. Well, you're going to come back in 20 minutes, and have you got something in the box?
Yeah, I've got something.
Don't tell me now.
Okay.
Save it for 20 minutes as a little frisson for us.
Okay.
That David's going to come back in 20 minutes, do some more stories out of the paper, and tell us what's in the box.
This is BBC Essex.
6:31 news headline.
Every 15 minutes during the rush.
BBC Essex Travel.
Thank you, Alice. Now, going through the papers, well, not much of going through the papers. David Appleford, engineer chairman of AcerMetric Limited, is with me this morning. David from Ongar has got more than 50 patents, and he walked in here this morning with a box. And I think we might get another story from the papers, but before we do that, what's in the box?
Okay, what we have in the box here is a little model of the system itself. And as you can see here, I have a shaped unit,
Right.
which is a rectangle.
Yeah.
And the rectangle has around it little black pieces which run around the periphery. These are three-dimensional locks. And basically, if you put your hands together and your fingers together, and you can get a feel as how the system actually fits together.
I see. So this is the original thing that you invented,
original
is it?
model, yes.
Yeah, I see. Oh, I see, yes.
And then this one here goes in the side there, and so you've got now a three-dimensional system. No, you put it to the side.
Oh, to the that side.
To the bottom there. That's it.
Right. Okay.
And then you create yourself a three-dimensional shape.
Oh,
That's
right.
it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's all interlocking together, and that's where the strength of the system comes in, because
That's very simple, isn't it?
It is.
Why didn't somebody else think of that?
Well, it's like the safety pin. How long did it take to invent the safety pin? Thousands of years. The simpler the things are, by paradox, the more complex they are to arrive at.
And those don't have any little grasps or anything like that?
They have locks inside them, which are what we call over-centre locks. So when it locks together, it can't vibrate loose, so it becomes an earthquake-resistant system. But you might be interested in these pieces here.
I would be, but we won't have time to do that, David, so you put those back in the box until later, and we'll talk about it at another time.
Okay.
But that is fascinating. And that box you got stuck together with old bits of paper, is that the original invention? I'd like to think...
The box goes all around the world with the various pieces.
And those are the original bits that you used to invent it?
That's right. These are just model pieces, but this is a 3D printing system, this part. So that's...
Oh, I see. So it'll all be printed?
Absolutely. We can print, well, not the building itself, the model of the building can.
Now, you wanted also to talk a little bit about the Ongar Academy, which is a love of yours, isn't it?
Yes, the Ongar is a small village, and I think it lacks the fact that some years ago...
It's got a tube station there.
It used to have.
Oh, it used to have.
Unfortunately...
Well, it'll still be there, won't it?
Oh, it's no longer tubes. I think it's a railway enthusiast station now. But basically, to bring a school into the area, a senior school into the area, I think will be superb. And an academy will be absolutely excellent, I believe.
Now, I've got 30 seconds. Independent Scotland was one of the stories from the papers that you wanted to talk about.
Yes, it always concerns me about countries wanting to go independent. I remember Smith and Rhodesia and what happened there, and it always seems to me it's like small people trying to grab power rather than trying to work together as a complete community. So I think we should stay together.
Yeah, you'll be upset if Scotland decides to leave the fold.
Yes, I have lots of friends in Scotland, and particularly in Inverness. I have builders who come down from Inverness to help us with our buildings, and I just think it's crazy to split up a union.
All right. David, thank you very much indeed. Lots of luck with all your inventions, from the pin to the house. And I'm just looking at these bits that you brought in, which you've engineered, and it's such a simple idea. I'm just amazed nobody else thought of it.
Well,
and that's the thing, isn't it?
It is. The simpler the thing, the more complex it is to arrive at.
You could be the new man who invented the cat's eyes in 20, 30 years. All houses could be built this way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope so.
You'll be able to retire to the Bahamas, and that'll be the last we hear of you. David Appleford, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Now, Georgina Burnett is here with the weather.